Recording has started. So first things first, we would like to introduce you to our panel. We are very fortunate today and having quite a great lineup for you. Our first speaker will be Helen Smith. She is from Norwood, and Helen wears very many hats. She's a mum, a wife, a friend. She's a project SME and a commercial system analyst at Norwood, which is a mouthful. And as you can gather from this, she's an expert juggler in maintaining tight timelines and stakeholder communication. So Helen will be presenting, and after her, we will have Pete. Now, Pete is one of the Assurity branch's leadership team, and he focuses on our testing practice. He heads it up. He's a veteran in the IT industry. He's got more than 30 years of experience, both in the UK and New Zealand's largest companies when it comes to testing. Rana is another Assurity consultant. She's one of our principal consultants within our testing practice, and she has more than 15 years of experience in the testing and QA practices. Lastly, we have got Lax. Lax has 14 years experience in technical services delivery. He's our testing lead at Norwood, hence why we are presenting with Norwood today. And before moving to New Zealand, he spent more than a decade in the US, leading applications under technology and that. So quite a lot of expertise to draw on from today. So get those questions in. What we're going to do is after today's session, we're also going to send out a survey because number one, we are a growth and agile company. We believe in learning from our sessions and getting feedback. But we'd also like to know if you have got any more questions and anything we can help you with and reach out to you. We've got an hour. Unfortunately, an hour is not always long enough to address all the deep questions. So before handing you over to the expertise of Helen, sharing her story of us, I'm going to run a quick survey with everyone on the line. If you haven't done polls before, I'm going to quickly run a poll for you now. Tell me if you can get it coming up on your screen. Okay. Just see. Can you guys see it? Okay.
No.
No. Okay. Should be coming up now. Can you all see it?
Yes, it's there now.
Yes. Perfect. Okay. So if you've got that, just click on the options. Okay, a last few people still need to answer. Almost there. Okay, we've got 1 or 2 more votes. I'm going to give it about 5 more seconds and I'm going to close the poll. If you haven't voted yet and you feel you want to be heard, now's the time to click it. 1 or 2 more. Okay, and we're going to close it. Thank you for voting, and we're going to share the results now. You should be able to see the results in front of you right now. Interesting. So the question was if you've been through or experienced an ERP type similar project before, and it seems like most of you who've experienced it actually had a good experience. Good and average seems to be where it was. I'm quite sad, but not surprised to see that only for one person had a very excellent experience. For the rest, pretty much it's not been that great. And others say they haven't been through a project like this before. So quite an interesting mix there. I'm hoping you'll find a lot of the answers to make it great and excellent in the future on this call. Thanks. Okay. At this point, I'm going to take the opportunity to close the poll. And I'm going to hand you over to the expert hands of Helen.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. So, yeah, who is Norwood? Norwood is a supplier of a wide variety of trusted agricultural and construction machinery. Established in 1948, we're known as a well-known name in New Zealand agriculture, and today we supply 1 in every 3 tractors sold in New Zealand. Norwood is a distributor of many global brands. We import and sell to independent dealers along with our 23 sites that we retail or service these brands from. We operate 24/7, 365 days a year, supporting the farming industry. Our 23 sites cover sales, service and parts. We work with the farmer with our purpose being to keep farmers moving. We're a team of 400 people, from our dealerships to our support office situated in Palmerston North. Many long tenure employees who have been within Norwood for many years. Some people left school and have only ever worked at Norwood. Now this shows significant loyalty, but also can cause some roadblocks to change as limited thinking on doing things differently. Norwood have worked over the past years to redefine our vision, purpose and values. These feed into everything we do, from selecting our business partners to extending the Norwood team. So why did we decide we needed a new ERP? We operate two main systems in our business: IDS, our wholesale system, and more recently, Equip, our retail system. IDS was in our business for approximately 28 years, a green screen system where many fields were free text. You can imagine the amount of development of a system as would typically be done, no documentation on these developments. This led to a system that was not able to easily be updated. 4 years ago, we installed a retail system, Equip. This was predominantly an automated system. It was a significant change for our users. This was a rollout in our dealerships which took 7 months to complete. The reality is that the retail system did not integrate with the wholesale system. This meant we had to develop nightly scripts to push data through. The end result caused confusion with users in retail and wholesale working in different systems. Trying to find ways to put data into the correct places to be confident of the data we were producing. Along the Norwood journey, it was identified that the wholesale and retail divisions were very siloed. This pushed Norwood to rethink how we could transform itself to deliver a better result for our customers. Along with our 70th birthday in 2018 was the launch of One Norwood. Here we dropped the retail name of Norwood Farm Machinery Centres and CB Norwood, our support office, to become simply Norwood. In order for One Norwood to exist, we had to consider the systems we were using. We needed to have one system, one source of the truth. This is where we launched into our digital transformation. So how do we decide on our ERP? We surveyed our users. We asked them, with the systems we used, including our reporting systems, dealer portals, Microsoft Outlook, Office, our payroll systems, our H&S platform, and our purchase order systems. We asked what was working great, what was okay, and what was not working. From here, we could establish what the users needed to do their job in order to keep farmers moving. We developed a strategy that would be the pillars for our digital system to be measured against. 1, customer focused. Do the solutions or processes benefit our customers both internally and externally? Is it fully integrated? Does the solution or process integrate with other solutions and processes for ease of management and full visibility? Is it cloud first? Is there a cloud solution available? Does the solution enable flexibility and streamline processes? And is it a cultural fit? Is the solution, process or vendor a good cultural fit for Norwood? Do they align with our values and our behaviours? By defining these pillars along with the requirements of our business, we were able to have a clear roadmap on the system that we wanted to deploy. D365 Finance and Operations plus Anata was selected as our best solution. We were clear that we were installing an MVP, or minimal viable product. This product would be the foundation for Norwood to have one system, develop process, business rules, and help to develop the business change that Norwood was looking for. We were not looking for a system that could deliver everything on day one. We were looking for a system that would be able to transact on day one, and from here have the opportunity of developing a system to take us into the future. So how did we decide on our implementation partners? Norwood is in the business of buying things, assembling things, and selling things. We did not have the expertise to take on this project without business partners to guide us. We work with Intergen as our key implementation partner. With Intergen, we have an experienced project manager and a team of senior consultants to help develop and guide us on Norwood's journey. They are also team members for Norwood and Project Optimus. We needed the assistance of a business to help us test the system. Assurity have been our partners since mid last year. Their extensive experience, their cultural fit with our business, their innovative thinking and aim of making things happen were an obvious choice. We have worked with Lax as the lead for the testing stream on this project, along with other senior consultants. We were looking for consultants who were experienced in D365 as our timeframe was very tight. They had these consultants. We're using System as our data migration partner. Norwood has complexity with 2 legacy systems that require specialists in data migration. Norwood has approximately 1.2 million released products. That's our catalogue from the smallest filter to a tractor. 2 different systems with different language where the systems needed to be meshed together. This created different types of errors, and each time a solution was found, regression testing back to ensure that the fix hadn't created a new issue. Each layer on top of this data had financial implications and reconciliation between D365 and legacy systems. To achieve this, we use 5 internal teams and 2 external teams from System. So what could we have done differently? Norwood had not carried out any system or business analysis. We did not know from end to end what is done today and what it would look like in D365. As part of our business transformation, if we had done this first, then we would be clearer on the things that people needed to do in their roles and things that were done just because that's how they've always done them. In the initial days, the FitGet workshops could have been had better preparation. We could have given better instructions on the purpose and result of the FitGet workshops. In hindsight, the FitGet became the foundation document for testing, training, and business rules. It's as simple as when talking price, that this can mean different things to different people in different roles. Yeah, does price mean cost price? Does it mean landed price? Does it mean a retail price? We could have scoped the project better with a clearer understanding on the scope of the size of each stream. We underestimated some areas, which put pressure on the consultants as well as the Norwood business. We should have brought in a change manager sooner to help with Norwood users' readiness to have change. Testing was discussed but left late in the development. We were lucky that we had expertise in the testers we used. It was not a simple ask for them to understand our business quickly in some of the more complex streams. Had we brought the testers in sooner, then they would have been more involved with the development, which would have brought them up to speed sooner. Our independent dealers, who Norwood sell to, posed the issue of negative testing. The project was exposed to several situations. We had a business restructure. This put pressure on the project. The restructure took a few months to complete, which resulted in focus not necessarily being on the project. The restructure was a necessary part of what we needed to do, however, could have been better placed prior to the project starting. Then along came COVID-19. We were in lockdown. As our business is critical to supporting agriculture, Norwood needed to keep going. We had to keep supporting our farmers. The project also needed to continue. At this point, we were into the UAT, or user acceptance phase. This meant we had to quickly react and learn how to carry out UAT virtually on Teams meetings. Some users had been exposed to the Teams environment, but untested as to how we would manage this. It was certainly a big ask for people to work in an unusual environment, perhaps with distraction of kids at home, trying to keep doing their day job and set up a home office. This all compounded, adding pressure to a tough phase of the project. Norwood was then hit by ransomware a few months ago. This took out all of our systems for about a week while restoration could happen. We did lose data, and once again, the focus of some of the project team then shifted to what needed to happen for Norwood to keep working, develop new security in our systems. Any one of these issues of a restructure, COVID-19 or ransomware on its own was probably able to be managed. These three big events occurring put too many layers on us delivering. Our board gave us the okay to extend the project, which gave us time to now develop the new BAU, or business as usual, for Norwood. Like many businesses, things won't be the same again. We have to work in a new BAU. This decision was made that all training would happen online. We partnered with an expert on training adult learners. This involved training both how to do online training and then the specific training material that a user would do in their job. Untested waters for Norwood, but also it's our new BAU. Our training stream should have also been brought in sooner. This would have worked the same as the testers, giving the trainer a clearer understanding of the Norwood business. We see our business partners as part of the Norwood journey. They have learned much about Norwood and who Norwood is. We hope to be working with them in future phases. So where are we now? We have regularly communicated with our users, and they are really keen to get in there. The message has been that this training is self-managed, something very different for our users. The message has also been that they need to do the training in order to do their jobs at Go Live. We have a support network set up with champions in each dealership and in our support office. The champions will be the first point of contact with the users in their areas. If the champion doesn't know the answer, they will then go to a super user, our SMEs. The SME will contact the Intergen support if there is something not known. The training modules are task recordings within the system. These are put into a training library and will be able to be rerun at any time. Along with the task recordings are the business rules and any tips that have been learned. Business rules are also a new concept to Norwood. It will require new thinking. These rules will require reports to help the rules to be managed. So, what's our next steps? We go live in D365 plus Anata on August 6, 2020. We will have a brownout period of approximately 4 days where manual recording of transactions will be carried out. This will also allow for data migration to be completed. We have future phase items documented where we will look and prioritise what is the best way forward. This is an exciting time for the project optimists and for the greater Norwood team. And then at the end of that, I'm taking a couple of weeks off. Then we have, I thought this would be an interesting thing for people to see. We've used this throughout our business. It's the confidence graph. You may have seen it, but it is the way people do purpose above and below, how they're feeling at different things, at different stages of where they're going to go through in this project. The project team has really felt every one of these areas, and as we get to the pointy end or down the runway now to go live, we feel some of these things hourly. So that's where we are today.
Thanks, Helen. Thank you for sharing that. I must just say from my side, I think it's refreshing to hear organizations like yourself being so honest about the challenges they face. And I think everyone's resonating with that at the moment. I don't care who you are. COVID and everything else that happened kind of have leveled the playing field for everyone. And to see how you guys have risen to the challenges and the thought that's going into the recovery, it's amazing to see. Well done. And thank you for sharing that with us. We really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay, I'm going to hand you guys over to Pete now. As I mentioned earlier, Pete is our test leader at Assurity. Now, we're only going to give him 10 minutes to speak. Sorry, Pete. If anyone does want to reach out to him afterwards to speak to him some more, please feel free. You can reach him via Assurity, and there'll be contact details on the slide as well as some information on the survey that will go out post this thing. Same with Helen. If anyone wants to contact Helen afterwards, not while she's on holiday, please, you are welcome to contact her. Pete, I'm handing over to you now.
Thank you. I'm still reeling from being called a veteran. I was actually handed a seat on the bus the other week. That was a milestone event for me. Anyway, so yes, so I'm Pete Savage. Thanks, Helen, for your time. I know you're at the sharp end of the project, so I know you're a bit time poor. And interesting poll. So hopefully, for those that have been through something like this before, hopefully, some of what we're going to talk about will resonate and see if it agrees with your experience. And for those that haven't, hopefully, this is going to be helpful. So if we go on to the next slide, I'll give you a bit of an overview of Assurity. So testing is a large part of the business. We started almost 15 years ago. So we are having our 15th year anniversary party next Tuesday. And testing is where it began. So it's still a very big part of the business. And now we've also got other service lines, as we call them, and capabilities in Agile, DevOps, design thinking. You can see them all there. So we've got a host of skills. And we also have our solutions, which are very much in the innovation, modernizing technology and new ways of working, which really is just drawing on all those different skills within the service line. And you can see some other stats there. But I'm going to talk today more about testing and the experience we've had more in a large ERP or large implementation. Testing is quite a bit overlooked in our opinion, as we would say, but we do get involved in large programs and small programs, and we get engaged via different methods. Sometimes it's one of those service lines that you can see up there that bring us into the solution. Sometimes it's an RFP. RFPs can be quite time consuming, they're hard work, but we may be bidding for a small piece of the business or the whole thing. Or the way that we really like to be engaged is via recommendation. That can come from someone within the ecosystem of the solution that's been provided, like Microsoft. It could be from an implementation partner, it could be from a management consultant. So we get recommended, and that's a really nice way to be brought into a solution. However we're engaged, or whenever we're engaged, we go through these three phases. So discovery, delivery, and maintain are the three phases we go through, and I'll talk about each of those in turn. So within the discovery phase, we really need to understand what it is the business do, how they're doing it, what's going to be implemented. Out-of-the-box solutions, as we call them, really don't do a great deal for the business when that's immediately out of the box. There is a lot of configuration and some customization that needs to be done, and we need to understand that from a business perspective. With the business, we need to take a look at priorities. Testing can test everything forever and a day and can go on forever if we want it to, but we really need to understand the business, where their priorities are, what are the critical processes, the high level, the medium level, etc., and where to draw the line in testing. Where would be acceptable to go live if we didn't get those done. We need to understand the legacy system or the legacy systems. What are they? What is the data like? How is that data migration going to happen? The data is key to any system, and understanding how that's going to get there, how we're going to test with that data. If there isn't any data there in the short term, we need to manufacture some data in the system in which to test the functionality, for example. But we also want to look at the bigger picture. Where is this in the bigger picture for that business? Is it a step towards something? As well as a successful implementation, do they also want to be left with a better testing capability, or trained people that can train a trainer and train out the system, or systems going forward? So we really need to understand the business and what they're going to want to get out of it beyond just this implementation. I say just this implementation. Deliverables out of this phase are things like test plans, approaches, priorities, getting that agreed, a resource plan, and this is not just the testing, but the makeup of the testing, who's going to be involved, what time are we going to need from the business, the SMEs, other stakeholders, other third parties that are engaged in the solution. And we really need to understand and have that played back as just how big this is and what people are going to be involved to do this. And also some recommendations. And this is the first time and not the last time I will mention it, but automation is something that we very often recommend for doing these. Then we go into the delivery phase. Nope, we've gone a step too far. So then we go into the delivery phase, and this is where we would have that team made up. So depending on the size of the solution, depending on the makeup that we've talked to with the business, that might be a test manager with a number of test leads looking at those individual work streams. They quite often are broken down into work streams. And that team might be made up of business people, BAs, testers from Assurity, whatever that is that we've agreed during that discovery phase. But not only do we want to look at those silos, those work streams that are focusing on individual pieces where the business are, but we also want to look at that end-to-end piece. What is it you need to test that goes across all of those different work streams? And then beyond that, what is it that then that system integrates with? And how do we test that there aren't any impacts downstream or upstream from different integrations? Again, looking at bringing automation in. Automation, we believe, is a key part of that. Whenever you're doing these deliveries, you're normally doing them in phases. There will be changes placed on top of changes. You don't really want to have to manually test everything every time. If you can automate, you can make that process much quicker. And it also helps you when you get into the maintain phase, which is what we'll talk about in a little bit. Don't underestimate the business involvement here. Quite often it's talked about as UAT for testing. UAT is not bringing the business in at the end and a big reveal. Look at what we've built for you. The business needs to be on that journey right from the beginning, involved, being part of the testing, being part of the testing team. The UAT should really be a small piece at the end, is that tick box exercise almost, that there is no surprise. They have been involved all the way along. It's really just, yes, we're comfortable. This is doing what we need for the business. Don't underestimate the sort of change management. I think Helen spoke about this. Sometimes it can be a huge change to the business. That is scary for some people. And part of that is that change management piece, the communications, the training. It's very often a big impact, a big scary impact. And that can really help. With the rumor mill is rife in these sort of things. The people involved in the program will then go back to their business areas and talk about this thing that's coming. You want that to be positive. So key is don't underestimate the business involvement, don't underestimate the test effort, don't underestimate the business impact of the change, and prepare for the post-go live. At some point, this thing will go live, and the people who have been involved, the third parties like ourselves, will walk away and leave you to continue the journey. And a big key part is the data migration. That then goes into our maintain phase, which is hopefully if you've put up some automation in place. Quite often these solutions have regular updates, especially if they're in the cloud. So these could be monthly or quarterly, and quite often they are contractually agreements that these changes must be taken. It keeps the system up to date, and you want to be able to deal with those changes. Part of that is enabling a regression suite, which may be a smaller portion of your automation, but enough for you to get confidence that nothing critical has been broken when these new changes. But also put in place the ability to look at the new features that are being brought down. You want to be able to take advantage of some of those features and add value to your business. So have something in place to be able to do that. And monitor. Looking at how it is performing in production, just keeping an eye on that, being able to react if something changes. At the end of the day, a cloud solution is tin and wire in someone else's environment. Changes can happen, and you want to be aware of any changes and any slight impacts that might have before your customers tell you. If we go on to the next slide. So just very quickly, in essence of time, best practices for us is prioritize the testing. Do this with the business. There is some technical elements to be prioritized as well, but really get the business involved. Look at that end-to-end view, and that end-to-end view is within the system itself, going across those work streams and the data migration. Then go beyond that and go across into the integrations and the interfaces and look at that whole from source all the way through to downstream systems and test that end-to-end. And your regression pack may involve some of that as well. And did I mention automation? Automation is there again, really a key part for keeping on track and on time and retesting very rapidly stuff that's already been tested and approved. And if we move on to the next slide. So this is the end. Critical success for us, that customer experience, that stakeholder, getting the users involved, data migration, test. It really is the key to having those systems work with your data. And quite often they come from very old systems, and the data quality can be everywhere. Business, SMEs, functional consultants, collaboration, I think with Norwood and Helen has said, everyone gets on really well. It's really critical to have that same alignment in the way that we work together. Pre-planning with the testing, get everybody involved, not just the testing, very early on. Let them have their say in what they believe is needed to deliver this, even if they're not actually going to get involved till later on down the track. Get that input. Automation, there it is again. I won't apologize for that. We think it is key to making that a success. Communications, absolutely take the whole business on the journey, make them aware. It's not a reveal at the end, scary, here's some change being put upon you. And the training. Everybody wants this to be adopted and used as a solution, and training is key to that. And that's me. Did I do it in 10 minutes?
Yes, about. Thank you so much, Pete. Yeah, and some great takeaways there and tips, and obviously years and years of experience there distilled into quite a short period of time, but we can see the wealth of experience there. Before
You're bringing up that veteran thing again.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I think we're going to print that out and put it on your desk, a big sign that says "Welcome to our veteran." Before we kick up in the Q&A section right now, we're going to ask another question just to warm everything up. So another poll is going to appear, and after the poll, we're going to open the floor. I've got 1 or 2 questions submitted to me already, and then we'll see what everyone else is asking. The poll's going to launch now. Everyone should be seeing it coming up on their screens about now. If you could please complete that for us. Okay. Got about 80% have answered. And thanks for the questions that are coming in now. Keep them coming. Okay, I'm going to give it another 5 seconds before I'm going to close the poll, as voting seems to have slowed down now. Okay, and I'm going to close the poll. Okay, sharing the result right now. Be able to see that on there. So that's interesting to see. I'm glad to see people think that testing is key to project success. And someone's saying maybe. Hopefully that maybe will come out as a question in the questions now to say why they say maybe. Personally, for me, I'm a definite yes from my experience in projects. Testing is key to everything. And I agree, I resonate with what Pete said earlier about bringing people in early. Very, very important. Okay. So there's a question I'm going to ask. I've got some questions that have been submitted to us up in the chat. And so I'm going to start off this question, and then I've got a second question that follows onto it because it kind of connects with it. The question here would be, we have external apps that integrate with D365. Did you use the recorded tool for automation? And if you had external apps, were you able to use the tool as part of your automation suite? So that's quite a specific question that someone would like to have answered. Pete, do any of you want to come off right? Will you be able to answer that one for us?
I think Lax might be a good one to speak to that specifically from...
If it is about an integration, if I get the question right, then I think it's more towards an integration point, which is coming in outside of D365. So yeah, so in that case, we started with building an custom framework using SpecFlow. So that SpecFlow is again a specific tool from Microsoft. And what it used to do is it kind of acts as a service virtualization as well. So even if when the integration features were not ready, we used to use data which was created on the fly and test those features which while the integration piece is kind of put together.
Cool. Thanks for that, Lex. I hope that's helped you with that answer there. Then another question I've got, I'm going to combine 2 questions because I feel they do kick off each other quite well, is a question that came in to say, so when you're dealing with something like ERP, so first of all, like a big implementation, they asking, and it must be quite a big ask, and this is for the whole panel, by the way, they've asked this, to say, describe the perfect approach to a large ERP implementation, okay? And then dovetailed onto that, the question was, when you have got something like a big ERP solution, say for instance, D365, and it's an off-the-shelf thing, should you focus your testing only on customizations, or should you still look at the whole? They're kind of like they're trying to understand the balance of where to focus testing. I'm going to open this to the whole panel, so whoever wants to pick this one up is welcome to. Lex?
Yeah, I can speak on the last one, which is where should we focus on, right? So the approach that we have taken with some of our clients is using a risk-based approach, and it was kind of in mathematical formula. Like what we used to do is, because when we talk about ERP implementation, it's about processes and sub-processes that are there within the system. And Helen briefly touched about the fit gap analysis document. So whenever we go into ERP systems, we start with a fit gap, saying that the out of the box features that, let's say, Dynamics 365 provides. So how many of them are fit, and how many of the features, the business features, are a gap? So gap is basically your customizations, right? So what we recommend is, what we did basically is, we had a probability and a consequence score. So probability score is like ranked from 1 to 5. So you talk about what is the probability of this, you as a SME or you as a business user touching on that feature, right? And the consequence score is basically again 1 to 5, and which again gives you the impact of that feature not working on your business, right? So once we use that, so we use the combination of business and probability and consequence score to determine how critical that process is for the business, right? And that helps us drive the test priorities as well, like where should we put more effort. And even when we talk about end-to-end testing, right? So now we know all the processes that most likely this end-to-end process would cut across. And it really helps to touch upon the factors, right? Am I looking at the right priority from business? Am I looking at the right, like, let's say if it has an integration piece to it, right? So it just helps drive the whole priority in terms of how do you go about verifying those features. So in terms of perfect approach, I'll have other people also jump in. So I just want to make sure that I answer that question, which is more for the where should we focus at and how do we go about it.
I can jump in here a little bit. Yeah, as I said, lessons learned from us is we didn't do any business analysis before we started the project. We didn't know what the business was today and what it would look like in the new system. That should have been the foundation start for it, and that would have solved a lot of questions or directed us differently, I think, to where we are today.
Interesting you mentioned there the business analysis and where you were. So one of the questions that has come up in chat right now is we had someone ask us how well prepared we think businesses in New Zealand are for continuous digital transformation. So that's quite a big ask. How well do you guys think? And Pete, with your veteran status, I'm sure you'll be able to add some weight to this question.
You're not letting that lie, are you?
No.
So I think part of these, I suppose to answer the question, probably not that prepared. I think part of implementing something like this, understanding that there will be regular updates, almost pushes people to be a little bit more agile in that respect and be able to deal with change and take those changes and put some processes in place. So it kind of forces them down that route a little bit. But I think on the whole, I think New Zealand's very innovative, but sometimes we're not very good at sort of taking on some of these changes and being able to deal with them quickly like that. So, and there's some really good old businesses around that have done things in a certain way for a long time. And then change is difficult, especially regular change. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, I think it did. Anyone else that want to add on to that? Can I move on to the next question? Okay, so this question is quite technical. It's delving a bit more specifically. It says, can you go into more detail around testing for data migration, what that involved? And is there ETL going on or other innovative solutions for D365 that Assurity do? So
I can answer that question. Yeah. So in terms of data migration testing, we have to look at it in two different ways. One is your reconciliation and one is validation. So reconciliation is about validating the number of records. It's just basically number based, right? Let's say if you have 100 customers that you're pushing into the data pipeline, how many are actually getting loaded into Dynamics 365? And one difference, before I answer that question, I'll just give some little background. So for D365, it works in a different way. So they do not, the tables are not exposed. So when you're pushing data into D365, it directly doesn't go into the table. So they have entities exposed, so, and you push data to entities and it takes care of underlying tables, right? So in terms of reconciliation, I think not spending too much time, like one of the quick way to do it would be, you can use Power BI, right? So what it does is Power BI integrates with heterogeneous sources, right? So even if you have an Oracle system as a legacy system or a DB2 system, right? You can still very well pull the number of records, like how many you're pushing into the data pipeline, and do a quick validation on, again, you can integrate that with your data entities on the D365 side and check how many, like what is the difference, like whether records are dropping or is it working fine or not. So that's one level of validation. The second is your validation itself, which is where you say, okay, I'm passing customer name into this entity field. So is it going to that field, or let's say if the customer name is not going to customer address, something like that, it's not going into the wrong field. So for that is where your validation comes in. So as much as I like that to be fully automated, I haven't seen that in any of the projects. It has always been a mix of a bit of manual effort as well as your some of the tools that you can use, like query search is a good tool that we have used in the past, which helps to alleviate some of the burden on the SMEs, because what happens, like typically where the SMEs expertise comes into play because they know the data well. So as an external organization who is supporting that transformation, we can stick to the business rules and validate, okay, if this set of data is adhering to the business rules or not. But when it comes to SMEs expertise, they can just looking at the data, they know whether it is getting the right amount of data is coming in or not. So, and again, SpecFlow is another tool that can be used to automate some of these data migration. So in a nutshell, for reconciliation, the first part, you can use Power BI. There will be so many tools, but still to start, you can use Power BI. And when it comes to validation, you can use something like SpecFlow, or you can have to build your custom framework, which you can piggyback on what the data migration team has been doing.
If I can add something here, Shadi, once you've got some comfort level with the migrated data, the way it looks, and you're comfortable with it, it's really important that you start using it as part of your business process testing, and make sure that your business processes, your purchase orders, your sales orders, and what have you, and how it flows right through into your finance, that it looks all right. So you do that first level where you make sure that your data looks right and maps into the right fields. Once you do that, then you need to start using your data heavily into your business process testing.
Nice. Thanks for adding.
I think just to add, this is such a big subject and we've talked about it quite a lot. It is actually a subject of a future learning hour that we're talking about putting together. So as it's come up here, we'll maybe bring that up the priority list, because it is such a big and quite interesting area to talk about.
Yes, definitely. So bringing it back, like Pete says, we're going to do a focused learning just on the technical side of it. So bringing it a little bit back from the technical side now, there's a question that's been asked to say, and this is for the whole panel again, it's open to anyone to say, and then Rana, I think maybe I'm going to start with you on this one. So while I'm reading the questions, have a think about this. What is the biggest challenge you have met during the project process for testing, please? So think of the projects you've been on and in the process of the project, what's been your biggest challenges?
For me, one of the biggest challenges sometimes that we face is not involving testing early. We turn up to client site and we get given a project plan and we get told you have to deliver testing within X amount of weeks, for example. And then it becomes a case of, and instead of focusing on putting a working plan, it becomes a case of actually coming up with a plan to say, hey, those 6 weeks or 6 months is not really feasible, and here's why, and put a proposal or put a plan on what is workable and what the risk is if we go with the current plan. So that's for me one of the challenges that I've come across a number of times on some of these projects that I've come across. Other challenges we come across as well sometimes is not enough information available to us when it comes to testing. And one way to get around that is making sure that you've got your SMEs integrated within the testing team, and making sure that your testing team have access to your functional consultants and have access to your BAs, you know, not having walls built between your different members of the team. Data migration for me, as I know it's been mentioned a number of times, but where I see things fail or, you know, suffer every time on these types of implementations is data migration. It can slow things down. It does take a while for people to get their head around what needs to be done and how you move forward with things.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else want to add anything.
So I think Pete has said automation 10 times, and I'll just add it for the 11th time that automation would be the key for an ongoing implementation, because like either you're working on, probably most of this project would be iterative, and we get features rolled in like with a new every cycle or in a new sprint. So we have to think about automation early on. Maybe we don't put 100% of the focus, but we actually have to think about the framework that is there. So that is going to serve the purpose when we are doing the implementation, as well as we leave with a good taste in the mouth that, okay, we have everything that we need for business to support when the consultants go away. So automation is an area which is often overlooked, I always say almost overlooked, and we always have to consider that at first sight.
I think if I can add to that, when we talk about automation and the reasons behind it, if we look at D365, for example, they've got monthly releases into production, Microsoft. And if you can skip the first couple, the third one, you have to take it. It's at the end of a project or the end of a stabilization period, you're not only losing your project team, but it's highly likely that you'll also lose your SMEs. They'll be going back to the business to do their BAU job, and they might not be available to you to do testing anymore, or even if they're available, then they'll be available to you to do it in a UAT capacity or exploratory exploratory testing capacity. So you need to think about how you're going to support testing going forward, specifically around regression testing. You know, you don't want to spend a couple of weeks every 3 months or every month regression testing your system. So that's where the focus on automation, from my perspective, comes from. It's that support going forward.
Yeah, thank you. Lex, this one might be aimed at you. We've got a follow-up question here, and it's specifically asking about the Recorder tool for automation testing. Someone asked if you've mentioned Power BI and SpecFlow, and I just wanted to know, the Assurity, do we ever use the Recorder tool at all?
So we have used Power BI in for reconciliation, and we have used SpecFlow for validation, where we were creating data on the fly till the integration piece or the integration pipeline was getting built. Yeah.
Okay. Then, guys, just cognizant of time, we've got a last question that someone's asked me, and it's quite an interesting one for me as well, is to say, if you are in the cloud, this is a solution that's being hosted in the cloud, why would you need performance testing? I mean, for a lot of people, I think this one sounds like it's such a no-brainer, but I guess there's a lot more to it than just that. So it's open for anyone. I don't know, Pete, if you want to grab this one. It says, I'll just repeat that. Why would you need to performance test if the solution is actually being hosted in the cloud?
Yeah, so I think I alluded to it in my very quick 10-minute run through. Cloud is just a solution held on someone else's environment, really, at the end of the day. Changes happen there. They'll do patches, they will do changes. That may impact what your solution is being held on someone else's infrastructure. So performance testing in the cloud, quite often those resources can be just turned up to deal with performance issues should they occur. That can be quite expensive. So I would always suggest doing some element of performance testing and that monitoring going forward, because even when you've gone live, it is hosted somewhere else and things do change in that environment. So it doesn't have to be you know, a huge effort, but it absolutely needs to have some effort and some focus. It's not just because it's in the cloud, you will never have performance issues.
And just to add to Pete's point, if you think about performance testing, it would play a critical role when you're actually going live. So let's say Helen mentioned, like, we have 1 million of release product size. So if you are pushing that amount of data in production, it is going to extend the whole period of how much time you need to go live. So it is, and every time, let's say if you have a preemptive virtual machine or something which you use to ramp up your processing power, it's going to add cost to your project, like every second, because most of these things are built by the second. So it's again a cost to the project. And if you don't do it early enough, then it just adds to unknown issues towards the end of the project.
Thanks for that, Lex. So just before I'm going to ask our panelists to quickly think about this one, I want you all to think about the one quick last final takeaway. What is your ultimate, if you had to give advice to someone and you had to give a quick advice, what can they change right now in their testing, or what should they be thinking of? Like that final takeaway you can leave them with. And then I'm going to start with, I'll start with Rana again, and then go through the rest of the panel while the rest of you are thinking. I just want to remind everyone, we will be sending out that survey just after this call. So please do give us feedback, especially the guys with the more technical things. Like Pete mentioned, it helps us prioritize which learning hour we want to focus on next for you. So it's absolutely to make sure that we're giving you the content that you want. So I'm going to go to Rana.
So the question is, what can you change about testing?
Yeah, or your final takeaway. What's that final piece of advice you would like to leave people with today?
Okay. ERP transformation projects tend to be big, tend to be complex, can take very long time. You know, I've been in implementation that have taken 2 years, even longer. There are so many things that you can do to do things well. If I was to leave you with one advice, is probably a bit more about people. Remove the walls between the teams. Make sure that your developers and functional consultants are working closely with your testers and SMEs. And make sure, you know, you're looking after the well-being of your people. You resource it well, because I've been on projects where, you know, people are working 60 hours for a number of months, and that's not sustainable. So have a good think about the plan, about if you're rushing into the market, what it means. Do you have the support to support the implementation when you go into production? Think about the bigger picture.
Thanks. Who'd like to go next? Helen?
Yeah, sure. I suppose for me, it's make sure you bring your testers on early enough that they can be part of the whole process. That, in the same way as Rana said, it's actually developing relationships as much as anything else with consultants along the way. And absolutely, don't burn people out. There's a lot of work to be done, and plan that well so it gets covered. So it's foundation stuff from the beginning for me. It was, bringing people on soon enough.
Yeah, that's basics. Perfect. Pete?
I wrote down, as soon as I heard that question, get everybody involved early, not just test everybody, regardless of where they're going to be part of that. Again, just echoing what Rana and Helen have said, build those relationships, get that input from everybody who's going to be involved, so you can understand how big this is going to be, and so you don't have to do those 60-hour weeks towards the end. You know, you've understood it as a whole from everybody's perspective, and everyone will have what they believe they're experts in their area, so they will bring in, have you thought of this, have you done that, let's plan for this. That does add to it, so see that as a whole, and set realistic then live dates, because quite often when you bring someone in late, oh my god, moments happen, live dates move, and also budgets get, you know, squeezed or asked for more, and if we don't want to be there, we want to keep on track. So get everyone involved, including testing, as early as possible and get their input.
Yeah, love that. Lex, final thoughts from you?
Yeah. So what I would add as a final takeaway is think of any big implementation as better adoption, right? Always think about, like, start with big end in mind, that how well your users are going to adopt it, because you are, I mean, as a project team, most of the people who are on this call mostly will be part of the project team if they're, I mean, as part of the ERP implementation. So, but we are the people who are not going to use the tool. It will be a different set of users. So we always have to think about from an end user's perspective, how can we make their life easy? How well they adopt to the new implementation. So if we make sure that we have that mindset, there will be learning curves, there will be ups and downs, but we just don't want to lose focus on what we are working towards. So if we always keep in mind that we have to think about better adoption for the users, then I think everyone will work towards in one direction.
Love it. Thank you so much. And Helen, thank you again for your time. I know you're very busy and precious. Thank you so much for that. And for everyone joining on the call, have an awesome weekend. Thank you so much for spending this learning hour with us. And we look forward to seeing you on the next one.
Thank you.
Thanks, Shadi. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.